afternoon, everyone. It is Coach Amanda. How are you? Today, in the Real Food community, in our live Wednesday weekly training at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we are going to talk about how to get in the real food that's going to make you experience real changes even when you're too tired to cook. So, I asked you guys in a survey just a few days ago, do we want to talk more about go-to meals list? What do you need? And you said, yes, let's talk more and have a Zoom session together about creating our go-to meals list. So we will do that. In the meantime, you also said, can we talk some more about getting in real food even when you're too tired to cook? Because so many of us are going through this transition from, well, we were at home because of COVID and had it just was easier to have the right food, the real food happening when you're able to cook at home and have a little more time in your schedule. It just is. But what happens now that we're shifting our lives, many of us right now, for now, to being back at work and back at school? And so we need to shift the way that we are having our food ready to go so that we can still eat that real food, get enough carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and be well, but our time has changed and the way we're living our life has changed. So I'm going to go over some strategies in this training session about how can we get the real food in really fast? What does that look like? What do you have to have in place to make that happen? And before I get into that, I do want to invite you to a new group that I have created for us, for basically us women over 35 to work on the part of being well that isn't around food. So this is the real food community. You know that I believe with all of my heart that eating real food is the place to start. Learning about carbohydrates, proteins, and fats and how they balance your blood sugar is fundamental to us being well. And I also know, and I think I don't talk about it enough, that there are other legs of the stool. There are other pieces that we have to have in place if we want to be well. And some of you had even been saying to me when you joined the real food community, I'm doing all the right things. I feel like I'm eating the real food. I'm seeing no changes. And it's these other pieces that are missing. So I've created another group where we can talk about those pieces: hormones, exercise, sleep, and stress. Those are the big four. Those are the other pieces that, especially the hormone piece, if you don't have the right, or excuse me, correct information and support around those pieces, all your work in the real food department could be sabotaged. And you might give up on yourself. You might think you're the problem. You might give up on real food, and I don't want that. I just want you to have the correct information and support. So I'm going to invite you to come join me in that group I'm creating. It will run a lot like the real food community. I'll share all the resources I can, and I will have trainings for us, live trainings, so you can learn and have that correct information and feel supported by someone who's been there and done it and is thriving, knowing that you're getting the information and support that you need. So I'm going to get a link to that group to invite you to join me. I would love to have you there. And again, this is just a group for women who want to be well. I'm calling it your Whole 40s Solution Group. But anyone over 35, I will be sharing the information you need. I'll share information you need in your 50s about premenopause and perimenopause, and in your 60s about menopause, so that you can stay well and know that you are not the problem. It's just you need a little more information, a little more support. So we don't give up on ourselves along the way. It's easy to do. This is an amazing world we live in right now, and it is pretty easy for us to start blaming ourselves when we are trying our best. I call it, well, for so many of us, gaining weight and losing hope. We're trying our best. We're doing everything we know how, and we're still gaining weight and we're losing hope, and we start to blame ourselves. So that we don't have that happen. That's why I've created this second group. I get it. We're all like, oh my gosh, Amanda, really another Facebook group? But here's the deal of why I'm not just sharing this in this real food group. There's just too much information, and I want it to be clear. So when you need your ideas, like we're going to talk today about how do we get in the real food faster? How are we just going to like make our fridge be a super fridge full of real food that we can just eat and not have to think so much about? That's such there's so much to share around that. It wouldn't make sense to also be sharing about the hormones, exercise, sleep, and stress in the same group. So when you need your dose of info and your updates on hormones, sleep, stress, and exercise, you're going to go over to your Whole 40 solution and get it. Okay. So I will put that link in the comments. Let's get into what I'm thinking now about supporting us with a little bit of a formula for fast real food. Here's what I want you to think about. First off, and if you've been working with me, you kind of know this one, but first thing I want you to remember is that we have a formula for a meal, and it's just carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Now, there are two kinds of carbohydrates to keep in mind, and we need them both. There are the like vegetable-y carbs, the fibery carbs, and there's the starchy carbs. So when we think of carbs, you're going to think of the potato part and the kale part, okay? The potatoes and oatmeal, all the starchier guys, and the more fibery ones that we just focus on if we do low carb eating. If you've done that with me, if you've done carb cycling. Then you need protein and you need fat. That's the simplest formula to follow. That's going to guide us through everything else we're going to talk about today. That's how we make a meal that gets us well. That's the secret of eating real food, is eating the carbs, proteins, and fats together, because that balances our blood sugar, starts with our master hormone insulin, and everything else works right. And if we don't have carbs, proteins, and fats in the balance for us, forget it. Like, it's not going to work. So we start there. Step two, we need to know, and I will put a summary of this for you guys. I'll have to do it in a second post because of the way Facebook works. So if you don't have time to take notes, I have this in a note form I'm going to post for you here in a second post in the Real Food community. Second piece is to know your meal by meal goals. So if you are lucky enough to have been tracking macros, you've worked with me, you understand that you can use a free program, you've listened to my trainings, and you know you could go get my FitnessPal or the Lose It app for free and enter in your information and see the carbs, proteins, and fats that you need in a day to gain weight, maintain weight, or lose weight, then you are on the right track. You know your macro goals. But that's not taking it far enough. What I see gives women success with real food is that they then break down those big goals for the day into meal by meal goals. You need to know those if you want to do this fast, throwing the macros together, throwing the real food together situation and have it work for you. Because so many of us are already throwing the real food together and it's not working. You tell me when you join the group, you say, I'm eating the real food, and I get no results. This could be a very big piece of your puzzle, is you don't know the portions you need, and they matter. Our body works by having the right amount of carbs, proteins, and fats. It can't just be like any old number. It needs to be what's right for your body. And the point of apps like MyFitnessPal and Lose It are that they have a little algorithm set up in them to help you get an idea. It's not going to be perfect, but you will work with it. It's better than having no clue. You need an idea of how many carbs, proteins, and fats you need to do your goal, whether it's gain weight, maintain weight, or lose weight. So if you need to go do it, go get in MyFitnessPal or the Lose It app and set up your macros. Then you're going to divide them by how many meals you want to eat in a day. And I'm going to keep it really simple for this training and just say 3. So my goal for carbs is about 210 a day. So I divide by my 3 meals because I like eating 3 meals. It just makes it easier. I don't have to worry about snacks. And that's 70 carbs a meal. So I know if I want to throw something together, I'm shooting for 70 carbs. And that makes my life a million times easier because it's much easier for me to imagine how can I get in 70 carbs. I kind of know if it's a good sized sweet potato and um, an apple, if those are there, I've hit my carb goals. A good sized apple and a good sized sweet potato, I've hit my carb goal because I've just been looking at food and what's in it for long enough that I kind of know. That's so much easier to know than if I had to think, okay, now by the end of the day, I need 200. I'm going to have 50 here. I'm going to do, what about, oh, I forgot to have any at lunch. Now I have to jam in all these at dinner. That doesn't lead me to success. So the second piece of this puzzle is knowing your macro goals and knowing what they are for each meal. I would venture to guess that understanding is 90% of the problem for most of us who are eating real food and not getting real results. So I have done many trainings about how to set up MyFitnessPal, get that going for you. If you need help finding them, reach out in the comments of this training and I will guide you there in the Real Food community because those trainings are here for you. Last but not least, oh gracious, and this is one, isn't it? We have to find a way to have the carbs, proteins, and fats on hand, right? We've got to have multiple strategies that ensure that the fridge and the pantry and the freezer and even the restaurants we're choosing have the carbs, proteins, and fats that we need. So that's what we're going to now talk about, is some implementation. How do you get the carbs, proteins, and fats in the freezer, in the pantry, and have what you need? Real quick before I go on, let me look. Deb was commenting on Instagram really quick. I'm trying to lose weight and love the idea of dividing my macros by the number of meals I'm eating. Yeah, if you are already a macro tracker, Deb, this is going to change the game for you once you know your meal by meal goals. I don't know what it is, but I guess it's just taking tiny steps. It just makes it so much easier because you're like, I did it at breakfast meal. I did it at lunch. I made it to dinner. I did it. I hit my goals every day. And then you can start to write down the meals that work and just put them on repeat. And you know, hey, that hit my meal by meal goals. I know it's a meal that works for me. So let's talk implementation. And yeah, how do we then make this happen? So I have a couple of approaches. I've got 5 big ideas for you on this one. And if you have ideas, you are doing something that works, please let us know so that we can share the love, right? We're all in this together. So here's the deal. My first thing that comes to my mind when people say, Amanda, I need something faster. I know you're sharing your meal plans. I know you tell me to have a go-to meals list, but I'm teaching preschool all day and then I come home and I'm doing night school. I can't even make the meal I planned and I bought the food and it's in the fridge. The first thing I have to admit that I think of is crock pot meals. And that's kind of what I'm leaning on for the rest of November and December. And thank you to everyone who helped me. I think I'm going to buy the Ninja Foodie thing. That's a new crock pot and a air fryer. I asked for help because my crock pot from my mother-in-law's wedding just died. It is a thing I love and it just died and we need to replace it. But anyway, I love leaning into the crock pot strategy. That works for me. Now I work from home. I do some night classes. I'm doing lots of training because I'm working on developing some of my own courses for you all. So I get it, but I do lean into the crock pot situation. And here I will put some recipes in the write-up of what I'm going to share after this training. So we're not going to talk specifics, but the big idea is that I've got some recipes for you that could be a pot full of protein when you get home and all you have to do is scoop it onto a plate and eat. So I've got chicken, I've got beef, and they're neutral flavor, but yummy flavor. So you can use them with whatever else you got on hand to make it work. So maybe you also made it into a pot of rice or rice and quinoa. And so you set the crock pot in the morning, you had your Instant Pot of rice and quinoa. You get home, all you have to do is scoop some of the rice and quinoa, scoop some of the chicken onto it, and drizzle on some of your favorite dressing. And like you have your carbs, proteins, and fats, and dinner is done. Maybe you put a little spinach under it and it made it even a more wonderful meal. But we can keep it this simple. So those crock pot choices will be in the write-up of the notes in the separate post here in the Real Food Community. If you are catching this on Instagram, you're going to have to join the Real Food Community to get all the resources. I can't share them on Instagram. It's just not possible. So come join us in the Real Food Community. If the link is right there in my bio on Instagram, and so is the link to my new community to talk about all the other stuff that isn't food, which is just as important. So, second approach I'm thinking of, even easier than the crock pot approach, in my opinion, is the smoothie approach. So, you can literally get in a whole meal of macros with a smoothie with stuff that's just in the fridge and freezer and pantry when you get home. And this is a good approach, especially if you don't feel like eating, which is so me. Like if I've had a day and I don't feel like cooking, you know what I also don't feel like? I don't feel like eating. Smoothies don't make us feel as full because chewing releases fullness hormones. When we're smoothie drinking, we aren't chewing, so we're not going to feel as full from the smoothie. So here's what we're going to do. Oh, bye, Deb. Thank you. Yes, you can catch it in the stories, and all the replays are in the Real Food Community, and all the resources are there for you. So I'm so glad you're there. Have a good one. So, smoothie approach. Here's how to get in enough carbs in a smoothie. Frozen bananas, fresh or frozen apples. If your kids take like a bite of an apple and then they're done, I have a 6 and 9-year-old. Chop off the bite, chop up the rest, core of that apple, freeze it. It is fantastic carbs for you. And you can put it in a smoothie and it sweetens it just a bit and it's perfect. So get your bananas fresh or frozen, get your apples fresh or frozen, get your dates. They will sweeten a smoothie like crazy. All fantastic carbs. If you need even more than that, you can put pumpkin in a smoothie. Amazing. Not a ton of carbs, but amazing. And so good for you and it's carbs. You can put sweet potato in a smoothie. It is good, I promise you. And with the right spices, like some pumpkin pie spices, delicious. You can always go with, and this has hardly any other flavor, and you probably always have this in the pantry, a quarter to a half cup at the most, or it'll get really weird, of dry oats. And you won't taste them, they'll just make the smoothie thick and creamy. And you will have just given yourself a huge dose of healthy carbs. All we need to get from there is our fats and our proteins. For fats in a smoothie, you've got all the nut and seed butter in the world, all the nuts and seeds, almonds, almond butter, cashews, cashew butter, whatever, and a frozen avocado, fresh avocado, some coconut flakes, and some coconut milk in a can. All this is just sitting in my freezer and pantry. I could go do this right now, and so can you, because you just stock up on this stuff. And then the protein. This is where you're gonna probably have to lean into a processed protein powder or your collagen peptides. If you guys have other ideas, let me know. Tofu can help a little bit. Soy milk can help a little bit. I use soy milk as my liquid in my smoothies because it gives me, my brand, it has between 9 and 12 grams of protein and a little bit of healthy fat. So go get your West soy milk, go get your Eden Foods soy milk, and leverage that protein from the plant milk there instead of just using almond milk that most of us buy at the grocery that has literally no macros and maybe even added stuff you don't want. There's a little protein there, but a lot of the protein in my macro meal, my instant macro meal smoothie, comes from using collagen peptides that are unflavored from Vital Proteins or one of my protein powders. So there you go. There's your meal, a smoothie. Great fast macro strategy any time of day. Can work if you're coming home at night. I've even let myself and my kids have the smoothies for dinner sometime. Like if my husband's out on a business trip and I just need a break, there's no shame in my game. And can you sneak in a handful of spinach that no one will taste? You sure can. You will not taste it. Just do a handful though. Don't get crazy. And kale, taste it even less. Now its texture can change things though, so just do like a handful of kale. And you can even use the stems, just throw it in the Vitamix. You need a powerful blender. And boom, macro's done. You are well. You hit your goals even though you were exhausted and you just had to drink it and you're good. All right, next approach, freezer meal approach. This one relies on planning ahead, but so does all of this. We've got to find some time when we're less tired, have more energy, and a positive mindset to do the planning ahead. You've got to have gone to the grocery and bought this stuff, right? With the crock pot, you have to find that time in the morning, get up a little bit earlier to get it done. That's another piece of this puzzle. Again, because we went from COVID, all this time at home, to now working and school, we're going to have to search out those times that we're not used to finding. There's going to be new times to do the prep ahead stuff. So for me, it's before I take the kids to school in the morning every other day. I am getting up half an hour earlier. I'm feeling good because of it. And I'm doing my crock pot started. I'm doing my Instapot of something. Maybe it's hard boiled eggs. Maybe it's the brown rice. And on Sunday afternoons, I'm out at the grill grilling up the protein. So that is another piece of this. And this will apply to this freezer meal approach. So the freezer meal approach is that you can use my meal plans that I share or use yours once a week. Have one of those dinners that you think will freeze well. Make a triple batch of it. Make a double batch of it. Do as much as you can with the pans you have and freeze the leftovers. And now you just have a backup meal that all you have to do is come home, and while you're teaching the night school, you're eating your reheated frozen chili. I love chili as a freezer meal because you put enough chicken, ground turkey in there. Use ground turkey and use ground turkey sausage, and I have a fantastic recipe. You guys will have to remind me to share it in the comments for healthy turkey chili that has beans. It's got every macro you need. Just heat up the chili and your life is good. So that's the freezer meal approach, but you're gonna have to be having the energy. Maybe it's on a Monday before the week is worn you down to make a big double batch of dinner and freeze the leftovers to have left in the freezer. Another freezer meal approach is that there are a few things that just always work in the freezer. So I buy them and leave them out there, and that is chicken sausages. Trader Joe's is a great resource. Costco has some good chicken sausages and even some beef sausages that can work. You just need to pay attention to the how much fat versus how much protein and be sure it works for your macros, which you're going to go back and watch my trainings about how to figure that out. But get your chicken sausages, put them in the freezer. Just when they're on sale, just buy them, leave them in the freezer. Then look out for those bags of fajita peppers or chop your own. Red bell pepper, green bell pepper, yellow bell pepper, chop, 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 red onion, chop, 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 freeze it in a bag and leave it for later. Use the chicken sausages and those peppers and they will make a meal because they can be for a low carb day. Put some red sauce with it, dinner is done. Some spinach underneath of it, amazing. Or on a regular carb day, because remember, I use carb cycling and we have other trainings about, I have other trainings about that too. On a regular carb day, in the pantry, have a box of, I'm always wanting to say lentil pasta, of chickpea pasta, and have a jar of no sugar added, Primal Kitchen's my favorite, red sauce, marinara sauce. Then get out a big microwavable bowl and put the frozen chicken sausage, the frozen peppers, the whole jar of red sauce, and microwave that baby. Be sure you cover it. Be boiling the pasta. Dinner is ready. And it's so filling, and you'll probably have leftovers to take for lunch the next day. So that's another freezer meal by keeping the chicken sausages and the fajita peppers ready in the freezer and the red sauce and the pasta in the pantry. That saves me all the time. I could use that once a week for sure. If you have other freezer ideas like that, please share. I mean, I will I will be your best friend. Those are so helpful to have. Okay, now let's go to another approach, and this is like the easiest one in my opinion. This is the macro charcuterie, real food charcuterie. So we need to have the food prepped, and then we can just put it onto a plate in a way that works for us. So here's what I was thinking. For protein, what if you had chicken sausage in the fridge, smoked salmon, I'm looking at my list, hard-boiled eggs, deli meat, ham steak, roasted or frozen edamame soybeans. All of those are carbs that you can make, or carbs, proteins that could go on your little macro real food charcuterie board, right? For protein. Then what if you had on hand for carbs for this like last minute throw together charcuterie board, some fresh and dried fruit and rice cakes and gluten-free crackers. And maybe even some muffins you've made in frozen that are made with oatmeal. There's your carbs. What if then for fats, you just have some nuts and seeds? That's all you need. Boom, done. You don't even have to worry about having anything fresh for that. Macro charcuterie board, you picked it out of the fridge because you planned ahead and had this stuff and you met your goals, and it takes no time. Last approach is what really is my leftovers for lunch approach, and I call it like the leftover bowl approach or the bowl approach. You have prepped the macros you need, the carbs, proteins, and fats, and you put them in a bowl, and that is your meal. So you have prepped, you have prepared yourself by buying fiber first. We're going to start with the fibery carbs, and then we'll get the starchy carbs. Fiber could be spring mix, spinach, romaine, cabbage, a bag of stir-fried veggies, whatever it is. That all keeps really well in the fridge. I always have it on the list. It is always in my fridge. That's my fiber I start with. Then I layer on my protein. I have taken half an hour on the weekend to get out to the grill and grill up protein. I grilled up chicken thighs, chicken breasts, and burgers of whatever ground meat we've got on hand. You could do bone-in pork chops as well, work really well. So that's waiting for this bowl approach. It's just sitting there waiting. So I'll pick a protein. Let's say today, let's do chicken. So I put a chicken breast on there. Now I need my starchy carbs and I need some fat. So what I've noticed lately is really good is sweet potato and apple on this situation. So it's kind of like Thanksgiving. I'm getting ready for Thanksgiving, I guess. So I'll put down my beta fiber, which is like shredded. Let's say I did spring mix this time. Chicken breast. And then I have already microwaved 5 sweet potatoes for the week. They're just sitting there waiting in the super fridge. They're just my carbs ready to go. Grab that sweet potato, chop, 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 throw it on the salad. That is a humongous dose of carbs and almost gets me to my carbs goal. Throw on a green apple, chop, 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 or a red apple, chop, chop, chop. It's delicious combo, I promise you. And I've got my carbs. And all I need are healthy fats. Everything I've told you from this bowl has very little healthy fat because I used a lean meat. Chicken's a lean meat, but you know where you can get your healthy fats? Dressing. So stock up on some dressings that are made with olive oil that you like. Use a tablespoon and you just hit your fats goal. And remember, we already have nuts and seeds in the pantry and nut butter and olive oil, all healthy fats. Maybe you have avocado, maybe you have some coconut flakes. Those would all work. On that chicken, potato, apple, it's so good with some cinnamon sprinkled on there. And then um, I would do my favorite garlic olive oil dressing for my healthy fat. And it would be really good too if I use like half my serving of dressing and then layered on pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds would give me another dose of protein. They have 9 grams of protein in a quarter cup. And if I use the whole quarter cup, it'll probably be good on my fats because they're in a quarter cup of pumpkin seeds, there's about 15 grams of fat. And they're really yummy with sweet potato flavors. They're really yummy with a little cinnamon, like pumpkin spice. And they're also really good with Mexican flavors. So that's the bowl approach, where you kind of hear like, I prepped ahead some protein and some carbs. The sweet potatoes microwaved 5 at a time, whatever, and the protein at the grill. And then everything else was sitting in the pantry ready to go. Okay, so that would be my bowl approach to implementing this fast macros formula. Oh my gracious, tahini would be wonderful. You guys can't see on Facebook this comment's coming from an Instagram live, but yes, that's so smart. Tahini is such a shelf stable, lasts forever in the fridge, healthy fat with so much flavor, and it turns into a dressing so easily, doesn't it? It is sesame seed paste. If you've never tried it, it's like sweet and savory at the same time. It's delicious on sweet potato. It would be really good with that combo of that bowl that I was mentioning with the apple and the sweet potato. And a little bit goes a long way because of it being, made of the sesame seeds. So those are all of the supports that I'm going to mention in this training, because if we go on any further, it's going to be just too much. What I will do next week in the Real Food community here, and you can join us on Instagram, is I'm going to go share with you one of the trainings I give to my clients as a bonus training around literally walking you through what's in my pantry. And hopefully by that, yeah, and it will be a great idea for carbs, proteins, and fats to fill your pantry and freezer with. So we will do that next week, and that will be another way for you to help implement these instant real food meals so that you can get through 2020 feeling better by New Year's Eve than we do now. We can do that. We don't have to give up. We don't have to let this year get the best of us. We can keep focusing on that real food and learning more and more correct information about how do you eat the right portions of the real food for you, and we can make real changes even in the end of 2020. I know we can. So thank you so much for all being here. Again, please come join us in the Real Food community if you're not there yet. The link is in my Instagram bio. And last but not least, think about joining me in that new group I'm starting that's about all the other pieces beyond the food. I think you will learn a lot of cool information there. So have a great day, and I will check in with all you soon. All right, let me put that link for you guys here in the Real Food community about the Whole40 Solution Group. And as I said, y'all, I know we are not all in our 40s, but once you are over 35, you are who I'm talking to about in your 40s. And like I said, there's information that I have learned on my own hormone journey, even that is, no matter even if I had been doing every real food piece properly, I would never have gotten as well as I am now. And in fact, I think I would have. I know I did. I fell unwell again, and I started blaming myself and thinking maybe real food isn't the answer. Maybe this doesn't really work. And luckily, instead of giving up on real food or myself, I went and sought the support of a hormone specialist because I had the correct information and the correct support. And I knew that's what I needed, even though my doctor and gynecologist said, oh, there's nothing you can do in your 40s about your hormones. This is just how it is. I went and sought out a hormone specialist, and I'm great now. I'm unstoppable now. So please join me in that, in our new group. I'm going to put the link right here for you. Okay, have a fantastic day, and be looking for in a few minutes the follow-up post with the notes from this training, and so that you can remember what we talked about and go implement and finish 2020 strong. Have a good one.